Welcome back to Spotty Talks. I'm about to tell you a story. Story time. If you weren't there, you probably would not believe it. So, I asked somebody to give me some topics. They said car crash. Oddly enough, there's only really one car crash in my past that ever came to mind. So, I've done some very unique things in my past. One such story happened to be on a New Year's Eve situation. I was leaving Valdosta State. Personal issues were going on. So, I drove back to Valdosta State in order to pick up belongings that were there. Sure enough, I did everything else I needed to do. I packed up the vehicle, went and saw some of my friends. Oddly enough, I actually got into an accident. One of my friend's fathers backed up into my vehicle, put a little damage on the side. Okay, fine. I didn't let it get me down. Now, mind you, the next day I needed to go to work at Hooters in Savannah. So that's like a 4-hour road trip. And it just so happened that because I have a very bad habit of not knowing what day it is as far as calendar-wise. I don't pay attention to any date for almost any reason. Well, it just so happened that it happened to be New Year's. So that night, it's a big New Year's celebration and party. So while I'm down there, I'm picking up my stuff, and I was like, oh, what are you doing for New Year's? What are you doing tonight? I'm like, oh, it's New Year's. Like, yeah. The only thing I could think of was the party at a particular frat house, because at the time I thoroughly enjoyed hanging out with this particular frat. So I went to the party, parked the car, went to the party. Had a great time. While there, met a girl. She and I were having a good time. Now mind you, I don't dance, so she was dancing with everybody, we're all drinking. I would tell you the name of the drink, but then you would know what frat house I was at. The part that typically one would not be proud of is, at the end of the night, she's like, hey, who's taking me home? And like 5 guys raised their hands, like, I will. So she hopped in the car with multiple people in the vehicle, and she told me to follow, to come to her place. Mind you, my car was packed. We get to her place, maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles from the frat house. We go in, and we have a very interesting few hours at the house, okay? And the time to go home is there. Mind you, I've been drinking all night long. I still had to drive 4 hours to get back to Savannah. Common sense thing to do would be to go to bed. Just go somewhere and pass out. And that would have been the smart thing to do. Literally, by the timetable of what I was dealing with, I would be going directly to work, not going home to shower or anything. I start on the road. I'm tired. It's like 4 or 5 in the morning. I try rolling down the window because it's cold. It's January 1st. The cold air hits me and it tries to help keep me awake. Doesn't really work. Mind you, I'm anemic, so I don't like the cold. So I put on the radio. I turn on the radio really loud. That doesn't really work. What can I do to stay awake? Maybe I should pull over and get some coffee. But coffee never works for me. Plus, I hate coffee. I'm more of a tea man myself. I decide that the only thing I could think of in my intoxicated state, in order to potentially get home safely, or at least to work safely, would be to masturbate while driving. So I did. While driving, mind you. So the problem is, when you finish, there's a cleanup you got to do. So while driving, the best that I could for cleanup, I just reached behind me and grabbed a shirt that was in the back seat to help with cleanup. So once that's done, the problem that I didn't think of beforehand is once you finish, you're more tired than you were before. Brainstorm of an idea. Do it again. For different reasons, I figured, well, hey, if I just do it again, it'll keep me up at least while that's going on, and maybe for some reason I'll be awoke after that. So I do it again. Use the shirt, and again, I'm tired. Sense seemed to escape me that night or morning, because now I'm even more tired than the first few times because this went on repeatedly for a while, until I literally, my eyes just closed while driving. Mind you, the sun was coming up by this point. I woke to my vehicle going into the opposite lane of traffic and a vehicle coming at me. And mind you, we was about to go around the curve. I woke, the car had honked. I slammed my wheel, to the right to get back into my lane. And mind you, I'm going around the curve at this point. So I jerked too much. The tire blew on the side where I had the accident from the friend's father. It popped the tire. And so I went into the ditch. I spinned and I rolled. So, literally over. I don't know how I survived because they were clearing that section of the highway. And so what they were doing for the woods that was there, cutting up all of the trees and making a pyramid type of shape on the side of the road, stacking up the wood. And a piece of the wood came through the windshield and it was coming for me, and I swear I saw it in like slow motion. So it's coming for my face and it stops like right here. And the only thought that I had the whole time was, oh shit, my camera. I know that seems a bit weird to be the only thought that went through my head, but at the time I was, and just before this, I was the Greek photographer on campus, and I passioned myself and I truly held value in my camera ability. So that was the only thought that I had. Remarkably, I actually only ended up with a scratch under my elbow. I got out the car and I guess I was in like a state of shock because somehow I hopped the ditch and I went off into the woods behind me before I realized what I was doing or where I was. And I look around, I'm like, why am I in the woods? And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and I look behind me and I see the car and I go back and I'm like, how did I get on the other side of the ditch? So I had to hop over a ditch because it's filled with water and mud and stuff. Hop over a ditch and I'm back at the car. I've wrecked. What do I do now? So I salvaged the only thing I could, which at the time was my computer and 2 pieces from my Monopoly game. I love Monopoly with a passion. The Horseman that they no longer really run, that's my guy. Yeah, I salvaged that and I ended up calling for assistance, which, believe it or not, to this day I don't fully understand it. The local police actually picked me up, didn't arrest me, didn't ask me for ID, anything, but they gave me a piggyback ride essentially from that county to the next county, called the police of that county. They met us at the border of that county and gave me, piggybacked me all the way to my door in Richmond Hill, Georgia at the time. No ticket, nothing. I was amazed and in shock, but they all were like, we're surprised that you're alive, looking at the vehicle. It was literally crushed down a bit and it was ridiculous. I don't know how I got out of it alive. I don't know why I didn't get a ticket. I don't know why any of the above, because that's not something, looking back at it, that I should have been able to crawl away from, let alone just walk away. But it happened, so that's that story. Like, subscribe, and comment down below.